Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is Don Freeman.
And I'm Scott Warr. And today we're thrilled to welcome a true pioneer in the world of sports nutrition, Jennifer Maxwell. Now, you may not know her name, but I guarantee you, if you've been around for the last 30 years or so, you've probably eaten one of the products that she helped create back in 1985. Jennifer and her late husband, Brian, founded Power Bar. And now you know exactly who Jennifer is, because I know you've seen Power Bar in the stores or your favorite shoe store. Power Bar was the first energy bar, an entirely new category of sports nutrition. And we're going to talk about that with her. But here's the neat thing is Jennifer sold that company years ago, and she's back with a new mission and a new bar. It's called Jam Bar, and it's made from real organic ingredients and built on the foundation of giving back. Jam Bar donates this, Freeman, get this, 50% of its after-tax profits to organizations that support sports and music. So really part of the community. Now, Jennifer's more than an entrepreneur. She's a lifelong competitive runner, a UC Berkeley trained nutritionist and food scientist, a mother of 6, accomplished drummer. I guess, and we're going to have to ask about this, she plays in 2 California Bay Area bands, and her newest creation, Jam Bar, has been recognized by Runner's World Bicycling, Ultra Running Magazine as one of the top nutrition choices for athletes. We're going to talk to Jennifer about her journey from Power Bar to Jam Bar and what she's learned. She's also, did I fail to mention? It's a running podcast. She's also a runner, and she's an endurance runner. We're going to talk about her running adventures and how that has shaped her life and her career as a nutritionist. So, Jennifer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Scott. It's good to be with you. Don, good to meet you as well.
Well, thank you very much. And you know what jumps out to me, Scott, right off the bat? Maybe this was your first question, and I'm going to jump right in front of you. You mentioned music. In fact, there is a music symbol on this package, Jam Bar. The jam is for jamming as a musician. Is that true?
That's correct. Our slogan is "Get your jam on."
Nice.
So right. So this is unique product, unique everything. So yeah, one of our slogans. One's real food, best performance. The other is "Get your jam on."
I'm curious, back in the 80s, you're sitting around, you're running, you're a competitive runner, and you're learning about nutrition from UC Berkeley. Why did you decide to start the very first sports nutrition bar? How did that all come about?
Well, Power Bar was really a journey with me and Brian. It was really meant as to create a product for him specifically. Brian was an Olympic marathon runner. Of course, I was a competitive runner. And there was nothing on the market that provided endurance athletes that had nutritional and digestive issues, what to eat before and during athletic events. So it was really out of our personal need that we created Power Bar. And of course, that grew to be a sizable company.
What did you use before that? What did runners use
Nothing.
before Power
Right?
Bar?
A lot of runners avoided eating. You might eat
really?
toast, cereal, steak and eggs. No. Brian had he was a pretty high level runner, and he had several experiences where he would run out of steam at the end of a marathon. So really it was a journey to create for him specifically. And then just in general, provide athletes with a better choice as to something they can consume during and before races and training.
Scott, I'm going to ask you, when's the first time that you ever experienced a Power Bar?
Well, I have to admit, of all of the sports nutrition products that I've had over the years, I have a fondness to the Power Bar because the original Power Bar was unique among, it wasn't a granola bar. You would peel this foil packet. In fact, you could probably use it as a signaling device after you opened it, because the inside was a reflective foil, and the inside, and I can tell you even now, I know my favorite flavor from back then. It was wild berry, and it was kind of looked like a bar of taffy. And to your point, Don, when was the first time? I used to do a little bit of skiing back in the day, and I would take them skiing as a a little bit of a break, a little bit of a snack during the
Yeah.
long days of skiing. But I found very quickly that you need to have it in an inside pocket, because if it was in an outside pocket, you could probably break all your teeth on those power
Yeah.
bars. But
Yeah.
that's the first time I had one. Do you
Okay.
remember when you first had one, Don?
Well, yeah. I mean, it just became like a staple. It was just like, when's the first time you've had a Coke or a payday bar? It was just always ever present. It was there on the counter, and I'd pick it up, and I just accepted it. So I really can't remember the first time, but it's been, I think, a staple for all of us. Jennifer, when was the
Yeah.
first time that you made it, picked it up, and said, "This is different, and this is
Right.
this is
Right.
good"? Tell us about your
'Cause we
first time.
spent, we spent 3 years on that formulation. And
Mm.
so we launched the product officially in January of 87. So I was still in school studying nutrition and food science and doing tinkering in the kitchen, a lot of different formulations from about 85, 84, 85 to 87. And I think at the beginning of 87, we're like, okay, we got a formula. We had to figure out how we're going to make this thing. We had to go to a co-packer, start a business from nothing, operating out of our little apartment in Berkeley. So, you know,
How did you know after all those iterations that you had a good product? Were you sending Brian out on runs every time you came up with a
yeah.
new formulation to see if he bonked or not?
Right. Both of us, right? And then our friends were guinea pigs. We use a 7-Eleven cycling team because you remember the whole idea was so novel at the time to have this
Right.
product that didn't crumble, it didn't melt, it was low in fat and innovative at the time. So,
So,
Eh,
so how do you go from saying, yeah, we've got something, then to start a business? I mean, it really wasn't something that was proven. You didn't say like Goo does this, we'll do it. We'll kind of follow their path. It was all brand new.
right.
yeah,
Who
not only
follow?
innovating the product, but innovating the
Exactly.
whole sports nutrition
Well,
business.
we created a market. Goo followed us, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
right. That's what I
Well,
mean.
right. So we saw a need, right? So there was nothing like it on the market. We were athletes. We had friends that were athletes. So we were fulfilling a need in creating a market with the product, right? So it's not just the product, but it was the process of how to make it. Because, the co-packer had never made anything like this before. So we had to help them figure out how to make it. And then the marketing of it, a lot of grassroots marketing. We had a very low budget. So it's really just trial and error, figuring it out, which back in the 80s, you kind of had time to do that. It was before the technology craze. So we were figuring it out.
I'm curious what the grassroots marketing looked like. Were you going to races and
That's
handing
right.
them out?
Yeah.
What did you do? What did that look like?
We developed little paper flyers and went to races and put the flyer on the windshield of the car and said, hey, buy a dozen bars, send in a little form with a check, credit card number, we'll send you a dozen bars. $18 a dozen or 3 dozen for $39. Yeah.
Is that still good? If I found that flyer, could I use that today?
Still redeemable?
Right. Right. So it's so interesting. The price was high at the time, but now it's like almost the same. So yeah, just really figuring it out, following our passion, really, guys. That's really what was the root of the Power Bar experience.
So
Walk us through.
Yeah, so you kind of went from passing out flyers and showing up at races and getting your friends and family to join in. Did it make it into running stores after that, or did you put
Yeah.
ads in magazines? Just kind of curious about what this grassroots experience
Right.
to
Yeah.
look like.
So we actually started in the sport of cycling because there were cycling shops, and remember we were in Berkeley, so
Mhm.
we would go to running events. We got the product into cycling shops, and then very quickly after that, we actually had stores contacting us to get the product in their stores, and we started as a mail order company. So all those little flyers we would leave on the car windshields would have a little coupon you could tear off, put it in an envelope, send it in. We'd get the package together, put it on our porch for UPS to come pick it up, and send it directly to consumers. So we were the Amazon of the 80s.
I was going to say that it probably took more than an overnight delivery back then. I'm
Yeah.
curious, were you shipping out of your apartment at the time?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were making the product in your kitchen?
No. At that point, we'd co-pack. Right.
Oh,
So
okay.
we found an authorized manufacturer to create the product, and that we would warehouse it and ship it out.
So
Uh,
they they talk about overnight, a 10-year overnight success. It looks like it happened just instantly, but it was a 10-year time span that you did the guerrilla marketing and made the product somehow and found connections. What did that hill look like? Was it a 26.2-mile marathon, or was it a speed record that you guys set?
I think it was a combination of both, depending on the day, right? So it's about 15 from when we started, about 15 years. We sold in 2000, but we grew rapidly. I mean, without competition, innovative idea, a huge need that we were not only fulfilling but creating. We grew pretty rapidly.
I'm curious. So you sold when in 2000? What?
2000. February in
the year of 2000.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mentioned at the beginning you have 6 kids, so that probably took a lot of your time and raising them. And then all of a sudden, why did you decide, hey, I missed this business and I want to start instead of innovating and being the first in the market? Now this market has grown into I don't know how many $billion market. There's still something more I have to give. How did that thought process work?
Right. Either other than craziness, but it's right. So Brian and I have 6 kids together. Brian unfortunately passed away in 2004. So I embarked on the journey of being a parent with 6 kids, right? And so the Jambar mission was towards the end of, most of my kids had moved out at the time. I started the Jambar journey in 2016. I decided to get back in this arena, even though, as we know, there's 100+ energy bars out there. The reason for it was I looked at the category and I said, hey, not a lot of organic bars, right? Not a lot of quality bars, not a lot of bars I want to eat. And with my background and my degree and my passion and knowledge, I think I can create something better. And that was really the impetus of Jambar, is that I wanted to be organic. There's very few organic bars. I wanted to be real food. I want to be able to create something that I want to eat, and I'm pretty picky. And I wanted to have super quality ingredients. And then once I feel like this is a great product, what kind of company do I want to develop? Right? I want a company that I'm proud of, that gives back to community, where the people that I employ are really part of this dream and they care about what they're doing. So that's our 50% give back that you mentioned at the top. But the quality of a Jambar is unparalleled in the industry. So
one thing I noticed.
How did you start with that? Oh, go ahead, Don.
The one thing I noticed is biting into the Jambar that I first bit into is I had just a instant recall of the original Power Bar, same exact flavor, and it sat there, was kind of like a callback. I said, I've had this before. What is this? So there's a lot of similar.
The similar.
Well, not the same texture as much for me, with the flavor and taste. That experience, is what I took from it.
Yeah. Well, we have 2 different. So we have the original chocolate and malt nut melody. So those are original Power Bar flavors. But this time it's organic, higher quality ingredients. And one of the biggest differences with Jambar is that we don't use manufactured sugars. So we don't use sugar syrups like tapioca or brown rice or corn syrup and things like that. So that flavor that you're getting is more of real food, real quality. We use maple syrup and sweeteners from grapes and honey. So just there's no aftertaste to a Jambar, which is unique in the category. And then in addition to the malt and chocolate, we have 3 that are a vegan, that are with protein from sunflower seeds. So those are mango, jazzleberry, and tropical trio.
I have to say that because it's related to the wildberry Power Bar that I first had, the jazzleberry is one that I've kind of gravitated to. They're just delicious.
That's the jazzleberry, yeah. And we put a lot of fruit in those, right? So I'm talking about that quality again. I mean, there's like big chunks of mango in there and tons of dried, freeze-dried fruit in there, and you can see it when you're eating it. It's just like unparalleled experience, I think.
Now, just like running races, when you become a veteran, you learn some of the hardships. I got to watch out for, hydration. Pace is something that's important. What have you learned this journey, this race, compared to that first one you entered with Power Bar? What are some takeaways?
Um, what's so interesting is so much time has gone by, right? We're talking 40 years.
Yeah.
So the world is different. The world of business is different. The energy bar category is different. So I'm like, what's the same? Not a lot. What's the same is that I'm still meeting the needs of athletes. That's the same. And I think what was really intriguing for me is back when I developed Power Bar, I didn't have the range of ingredients that I have when I was developing Jam Bar. Right. So there wasn't all these different grains that I could use, the sorghum and the brown rice and the quinoa combined with the oat bran and these incredible sweeteners like maple syrup and grape syrup and these different nut butters. And so that the food technology segment has really improved and increased over time. So that's been really fun as a food scientist. In terms of business, I think
So
it's
as a
being,
scientist,
creative. Yeah.
when we compare
Yeah.
the old Power Bar to the Jam Bar now, same number of calories,
Mhm.
just talk about some of the performance qualities from the old now to the new. How did that change?
Yeah. They're pretty similar, actually, right? So Power Bar had 10 grams protein, Jam Bar has 10 grams protein. We'll see a blend of complex and simple carbs. Again, the difference is Jam Bar is organic and has a little bit more grains than the original Power Bar. Jam Bar is a little bit more grainy, but similar texture, different flavors. A little bit more real food, but the nutritionals are very similar, I would say. Little bit more fat, and then we use a little bit more nut butters. The whole thing with Power Bars, we wanted to really make it low fat, and we're a little bit more low to moderate fat.
Now we know that you're an endurance athlete, that you have a relationship with a race out there in the Bay Area of California called the Dipsy.
Oh
Tell
yeah,
us a little bit about your experience as a competitive runner, and where has that journey taken you?
yeah. I mean, I started running when I was 13 years old. My mom
Wow.
ran, my family ran, so I was just, I was running at a very young age. Actually, ran a marathon when I was 13. Did
Hmm.
pretty well. Ran through high
Wow.
school, ran in college, ran the Dipsy a number of times. I grew up on Mount Tam, so trail running's just been a huge part of my experience as an athlete and enjoyment of being out in nature.
Was because of that experience growing up in that area and on the trails, did you find that the trail runners also embraced the Power Bar, or were they
I think
still
so.
taking baggies of granola out there?
Oh, I think you had both. I think some people like the portability of the Power Bar, and of course, Jam Bar is it's not going to crumble into a mess and get all over you. You can put it in your pocket or your attached to a water bottle, what have you. So the convenience of it is definitely a good thing.
Now, those of you who have actually experienced the original Power Bar, I don't even know if they're not making the original Power Bar anymore, are they? They're more of
In
can
some
you
form or
find
fashion. Yeah, it's hard to find in this country, but I think in Europe it still exists.
Yeah, they were very unique, and I got to say that because it was the first nutrition bar that I ever had, I have some fond memories of it. Um, but there was like I said at the beginning, if they were older or if you had them in a cold place, they could be very, very difficult to eat. And you had to kind of, it was like taffy. You kind of had to be
Right.
careful. I'm just curious, when the Jam Bar came out, now they're completely different texture. You don't need to worry about breaking your teeth on these.
They're
Um,
softer. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, they're softer and much more delicious. Are you finding that athletes are getting the same performance kick out of these as they were with the original Power Bar?
Yeah. I mean, again, the whole idea behind is that digestibility factor is really high. You got the low to moderate fat. You got this sort of texture that sits nicely in your stomach. It doesn't have big pieces of grain. It's got that nice oat bran, soluble fiber. Goes down nicely with water or even without water. It's got the combination of complex simple carbs and protein. So It's definitely, Jambar and Powerball were used before athletic events and during, for sure.
One question I have. Oh, go ahead.
Since you're a nutritionist, let's talk a little bit about some of the nutrition on the trail. Since we're talking to trail runners, what kind of sugar should we be looking for? Should we look for a slow release carbohydrate, something that dumps quick? I mean, how many calories per hour? There's 3 questions there, Scott. Just giving her an option of any of the 3. What do you think? School us up a little bit, nutritionist from Berkeley, about carbohydrates and running.
Right. All right. So thanks for asking this question, because I have my own healthy eating philosophy that I'll share with you in a nutshell.
Let's learn.
And then we'll talk a little bit about carbohydrates specifically. But I think what I recommend as a nutritionist is you want to go for a lot of variety in your diet, right? I know there's a lot of nutritional hype about certain types of diets, whether it be low carb, high protein, high fat, whatever it is. I don't really aspire to any of those because I think they're just not sustainable. And I think that it's hard to out-trick the human body. So I say eat a variety of foods and also enjoy what you're eating, right? Your diet shouldn't be an agony of wills and restrictions that somehow make you more virtuous, right? So enjoy what you're eating. And it's a nice part of life is to enjoy what you're eating, but educate yourself into what works for you, right? Because each individual athlete and person is a unique system. And so you have to trial through error. And some people have certain requirements, other people have less requirements, but just to enjoy what you're eating. But I recommend focusing on eating a lot of colorful fruits and vegetables for the protective phytochemicals and fiber. And then in terms of protein, aim for eating a variety of protein sources. If you want to eat meat, you can do that. If you don't, then learn how to combine your grains and your legumes into more of a vegan or a vegetarian diet. But in terms of types of sugars, again, one of the things that I emphasize with Jambar is that we didn't want to use what I call manufactured sugar or fake sugars. And a lot of the bars out there have these fake sugars or manufactured sugars or not digestible sugars, whether it's going to be allulose, stevia, erythritol, even some of these sugar syrups that are converted from starches. The digestibility of those syrups and those sugars is not as good, and they don't taste as good as using something that exists inherently in nature, like maple syrup, like sugar from grapes, like honey. And that's why Jambar uses pure real food and not converted starches.
How does that translate into stomach distress? A lot of us runners, as we get out there and we're putting in many hours, we start having our stomachs go south, or we're having some distress. Does that natural sugars, does that help that digestibility and maybe stave off that stomach insecurity?
I think it could, right? Your body's more accustomed to it. That's exist in nature. It's not a manufactured chemical. It's not a chemical carbohydrate. It's not a chemical sugar. It's not a highly ultra-processed manufactured sugar. But again, each individual is so different. I think it's really important to try it in training and then know what works for you. Part of it is that's our philosophy, being closer to nature. And also, it just tastes better. If you were to try some of these sugar syrups compared to maple syrup, it's delicious.
So if I get up early to go for a run, should I fuel before I get out there during that run, or just wait till after? And we're going out for a couple hour run, just some morning run, not highly competitive, just kind of a shakeout, fun, easy go. Let's talk about fueling, timing and fueling.
Yeah, a lot of it depends individually, of course, as I said, but also what you ate the night before. Are you well fueled? What's your muscle glycogen? What's your blood glucose levels? How far are you going to run? How hard are you going to run? All those things. I mean, some people prefer to run on empty. Some people prefer to have coffee and a half a bar, a whole bar. So,
what do you think about the constant glucose monitoring? Those little devices, biomarkers you can put on and see what your glucose level is in real time.
I'm not that familiar
subscribe
with
to that?
I'm not that familiar with that. I mean, again, a lot of that has how well you're trained. Are you burning fat as you're running? How fast are you running, right? How is your body adapted to substrates for fuel. There's a lot of variables there. So
Yeah, I think it does go back to something we talk about all the time is learning to listen to your body. Then you try one and you listen to it. You try something else, you listen to it. You'll settle in
right,
probably very close to what's best for you based on your experience.
right.
Yeah.
And it could depend on the day too, right? Your body's always in a little bit different mode each day.
Mm-hmm.
From your experience as a runner, I know that we've kind of, at least in our trail running, ultra running community, we've gone from, doing carb loading before a race to this high protein, high fat, fat fueled philosophy, and now we've kind of come full circle, and we're back to loading carbs, maybe not loading before the race, but during the race, eating a certain number of grams of carbohydrates during the race. What is the ideal? And you probably will say depends, because that's the common answer to a lot of this stuff. But what's a guideline for somebody that's starting running? What's a guideline that you could give them as far as how many grams of carbohydrates they should be ingesting per hour?
Yeah, if they're going to do a long endurance event that's 3+ hours, 4+ hours, it depends how fat adapted they are, how much fat are they utilizing, because you're always going to use a combination of substrates for fuel, right? Primarily glucose from your blood and your muscle. You will use some fat depending on how much oxygen you're using, right? Remember that if you're going to burn fat, you're going to need oxygen for that. So, and as you train more and more, you become better at burning that fat so that you don't run out of glycogen, right? That's part of the philosophy. But in terms of number of grams of glucose per hour, I don't know, something around 25 to 50 grams per hour, I would say. A jam bar is about 34 grams. So something like if you could eat a whole one bar an hour, I mean, that seems like a lot, but it really depends on the person, how big the person is. Maybe some people might do better with a half a bar per hour, and are you drinking electrolytes with it that already has carbs in it? Some people prefer to eat real food during an ultra because they want that experience of feeling a little more satiated. Other people don't want to eat any solid food. They want to eat gels, they consume gels and just fluids, depending on how, if it's a 50K versus a 50-mile or 100-mile event. But there are a lot of people that like to eat something, right? And they don't want it sitting in their stomach causing gastric distress. You want to keep that engine running without worrying about, bloating, without worrying about, heartburn and this type of thing. So, but also you don't want to run out of fuel. So you want to keep it clean burning.
Any thoughts about mixing or combining, or just some variety as you go through the race? Maybe the first 25% you're using some type of carbohydrate, or just kind of moving through different types of food as the day goes on.
Yeah, I think variety is key. It's already psychologically is your psychological state is so important to when you get to that middle end portion of a race that's it's really long like that. I think adding a little bit of variety to what you're consuming is a good idea, as long as you've tried it, right? I don't think you want to try something during a race you haven't tried in training. That could be a little dangerous.
That's one of those the first three things you learn. Don't do something new on race day. That's for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of things have changed in nutrition, no doubt. I mean, we can look around, and we're speaking right now to the innovator, the very first out of the gate. But a lot of things have changed, not just with nutrition. And you being an ultra runner yourself, what changes have you seen in our sport when you first went out there in the beginning? What people were wearing, how they get hydration in, just some of your thoughts about what's happened to this sport that you entered into.
There's a lot more options than there were, right? A lot of options, and maybe too many, but there's a lot of options, and I think there's a lot more trial and error going on because of those options. Of people like, okay, I want to try this, I want to try that. What works for me? Also, there's a lot of advice, and you got to figure out what kind of advice applies to you. You try it, and like, okay, that sounds appropriate. My recommendation is be careful about quick fix. Be careful about a promise that doesn't seem realistic. Marketing schemes and things like that. At the end of the day, it comes down to, does it seem to make common sense to you about what you're consuming and how you're enjoying that as an athlete?
All right, we're going to have you protect the innocent by not saying brand names or products. But over the 40 years that you've been doing this, what are some of the most hyped untruths that you've seen in the nutrition bar or energy bar industry? People that have come out and said, this is the greatest thing next to this is going to be the savior of your nutrition issues. What have been the most hyped trends that you found have been completely false?
Yeah.
Can you think of any?
I don't know, completely false. I would have a caveat that it's not completely false. I would say that it's not, if there was any benefit to a particular product or a particular dietary regimen that you want to follow, there might be some temporary truth to it. But in terms of longevity and sustainability, I would doubt that would be a realistic expectation, right? Whether that's low carb, high protein, some of those things. Obviously high protein has been a huge craze recently. There's a lot of products that hype high protein. But when you look at those products that are claiming to be beneficial because they're high in protein, you got to look at what they're made of, right? They're really more chemical conglomerates than they are food. So you got to ask yourself, do I want to be eating all those chemicals, even though it might have 30 grams of protein per bar? Or would you be better off eating chicken breast and, real food, or maybe 2 jam bars that actually are real food and not a chemical conglomerate? So there's a lot of chemicals in some of these products that personally I think would be a good idea to look at that as a concern for digestibility as well as overall effect on your health, your gut health. Fake sugars, as I mentioned. So you got a lot of chemicals going on there. It's like, well, how's my body going to react to those chemicals immediate during the race or during training? And then over time, if you keep consuming a lot of these products, what's the overall effect going to be on your gut health, which affects a lot of your well-being? So that's one thing I think about.
So when I turn a product over to the back label, what ingredients should I be looking for that I would give me a thumbs up? Hey, this is a good product. And what products should I be looking for that are on that ingredient list that I should say, throw this as far as you can across the store?
Yeah, probably don't want to consume that. I would, look for real food, right? So is it whole grains, like with the jam bar, first ingredients, oat bran? So look for real foods, whole grains, nuts, good protein sources that aren't just chemicals. What's the sugar source, right? Is it a real sugar, or is it a processed chemical syrup? Right. Then look for fake things, fake sugars that, probably aren't going to, well, first of all, they don't taste good, but second of all, they're not really very good for you. Then look for added oils, look for, gums and preservatives, and flavorings is another one. I didn't use any flavorings with jam bar. I used extracts. So just really look for things that exist in nature. And that's interesting. Is hard to find.
That's interesting. I never thought of extract being a good ingredient. So I think that's one of the takeaways from this conversation is if I see something that says extract, that's good. If I see flavoring, that's bad.
Potentially, yeah. Extracts are a little more inherent in nature, where flavorings could be, manufactured from other sources and not the original source of that component.
So as a nutritionist and as a mother of 6, I'm curious, what is your philosophy on nutrition and longevity? Maybe not specific to endurance sports, but longevity. How can we learn to be healthier longer?
Yeah. I mean, it's, healthy means, what's the definition of healthy, right? There's so many components to that. There's avoidance of disease. There's being happy. There's being a good weight. There's being, having a good amount of muscle mass on your body, having different types of cardiovascular fitness. Again, what I said, which is focusing on fruits and vegetables, it comes down to that, and good sources of protein, right? And beyond that, it's variety, fiber, super important to incorporate that fiber into your diet so that you get the waste products out of your body. A lot of personal preferences. I think people should think about what they enjoy eating, and so if they enjoy eating lots of meat, well, then you can eat lots of meat. If you don't enjoy eating meat at all, then you got to figure out how to get protein in more cleverly. It takes a little more effort. For fruits and vegetables, fiber, protein, and good carbs. Enjoy your carbs and enjoy that little piece of birthday cake that you're going to eat sometime, whether you're going out to, a special dinner, or, maybe you want to reward yourself or just feel good about eating something that's, quote, not super healthy. That's okay. Try to avoid sort of these extremes. I think goes a long way.
Well, Jennifer Maxwell, I've got to tell you, I think you've hit the nail on the head, because I'm looking at the ingredients here thinking, Scott, if you can't read it, you should probably avoid it. If you have to call your high school chemistry teacher to help you get the pronunciation, organic oat bran, organic pure maple syrup, organic whey protein concentrate, organic peanut butter, organic grape sugar, everything starts with organic and a name I can actually pronounce, usually 1 or 2 syllables. So I think you've got the right stuff in each one of these bars.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of work went into that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a question and it just went out my head because that was a good question you asked, Don.
I didn't even ask the question. Ryan will take care of this, Jennifer. Don't worry. It'll okay. All come out perfect.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of news about ultra-processed food, right? That's the new thing right now. Avoid ultra-processed food. A lot of people don't know what that is. But to me, that means avoid foods that have all these chemicals and ingredients you can't pronounce, like what you're saying in the gem bar. You know what those things are. Ultra-processed foods. I mean, some processing is good for foods. A lot of processing actually increases the nutrient value and availability. But these ultra-processed foods have a lot of chemicals, where the food stops resembling food and more resembles chemicals. So that's what people have to be wary of. That becomes just too big a part of your diet. Once in a while, it's okay. You want to enjoy it, but too often, it becomes kind of poisonous and toxic.
I did remember my question, and it's a selfish question. I want to talk about fiber. You mentioned fiber, and I think you get a lot of fiber from plants and from fruits and vegetables. Right. Are we getting enough? Is the typical diet enough? Are we getting enough fiber, or do we need to supplement that with these? Metamucil, I think, is a fiber, or benefiber. Are those effective? Are those good at all, or should we just eat more fruits and vegetables?
Well, we should eat more fruits and vegetables. You really should. They're very protected, not just for the fiber, but those phytochemicals, those phytonutrients I mentioned. So plants have those colorful elements that, the purples, the greens, the oranges, the reds. Those are all very protective for our cells, for combating free radical damage, combating diseases, whether it's cancer or other diseases. That's why eating fruits and vegetables, one reason, eating fruits and vegetables, it really is so important. And then, of course, the vitamin mineral content of those fruits and vegetables and the fiber that you mentioned. Right? So grains also have those phytonutrients. So that's why basing your diet on fruits and vegetables and grains is actually very important. And in terms of supplementing, if you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and grains, you shouldn't have to supplement. I actually do eat a fair amount of flaxseed because I've done research on flaxseed, and flax seeds are really, really good for you, particularly the ground flaxseed, so that your body can absorb it.
My dad used to say, I've never brought my dad up on the podcast, but I will today, when because he used to say, fill your plate with colorful fruits and vegetables and you'll get what you need. Eat That's by color. I remember him saying that. And it seems as I live my years past the time I first started hearing that, I think he had some wisdom there. That was a good one.
And that was years ago, right? It wasn't something that's new, right? They kind of knew that back, 50, 75 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so my question to a nutritionist, someone that's paid attention to what they've put, in their bag when they're at the store. So I buy fruits and vegetables. I really want to do good on that, and I start gathering up because of
Yeah.
all the pesticides and chemicals that may be sprayed on them. Am I doing myself any
Uh-huh.
favors by just eating more vegetables, or can I protect myself with the quote unquote organic?
Well, organic is better. Like I said, that's one thing about Jambar. It's one of the reasons I think eating organic is important for that reason, the pesticides. You can also do you can buy certain washes that help wash some of those pesticides off of your fruits and vegetables.
Hmm.
There are ways around that as well. But I think one of the things I left out that's important is learn to cook, right? So
Mm.
learning to cook, and like you say, you fill your basket with all these fruits and vegetables and grains. Well, what do you do with them? If you don't know how to cook, it becomes really intimidating. So learning to cook is really important, particularly for children, that parents teach their children to cook. And we can start combating some of the obesity epidemic that's happening in our youth these days. They don't become intimidated by fruits and vegetables and think they're yucky. They actually learn to cook and they're like, oh, these are actually good.
Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
I will say one of the things my wife started, probably I think it was may have been during the COVID years, was she made a list, and every week she would try to eat 50 different fruits or vegetables, and she would keep track. Like I
Oh,
had an onion, and we learned I never had a jicama before
uh-huh.
we started this thing, and I've fallen
Yeah.
in love with jicama plants. They're
Yeah.
delicious. Have a
Yeah.
good crunch to them. I just absolutely love them.
Uh-huh. So all kinds of secrets out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I'm intrigued a lot by the nutrition and about the products that you have developed. But that's just only part of the equation. It's the other part is creating a company behind the
That's right.
product and the
That's right.
marketing and the operations of creating this product. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about some of the lessons you learned from Power Bar and developing that company, and how you've developed Jambar, and why that Jambar is a different company. What values does Jambar have from the lessons you learned developing Power Bar? Is
And
that too long of a question?
no, excellent, Scott. In fact, once I developed a product I was proud of, I wanted to develop a company I was proud of. And so what that means to me is the people that I employ care about what they're doing and feel personally invested, which means that they benefit from the company doing well. So that means, back in Power Bar days, that was a profit sharing program. So we had profit sharing. We had an ESOP program, employee stock ownership program. So I carry a lot of those same fundamental beliefs into Jambar. We have a very small, dedicated team here of people that really care and are rewarded for doing a good job. And then on top of that, I wanted to create a company that gave back. So that's why we donate 50% of our after tax profits to organizations that promote music and sports. So it's really a community involvement. So it's involvement with, creating an environment where people want to work here, and then creating a community involvement where people love Jambar. People are like, oh, we're going to get some Jambars for this local music event, or yeah, we're going to give out thousands of bars to this bike event or this race or this, trail cleanup day or whatever it is, right? We just want to be involved in people's lives in a positive way.
And I will say that we've learned this firsthand. The way that we became aware of Jennifer's story was from one of her employees, Debbie. And
Uh-huh.
Debbie is not only a Jambar employee, but was one of your original Power Bar employees that you've brought back. And it seems like more of a family that you have created there
Yeah,
instead of just a company.
it is. It's an extended family for sure. I have many people that worked at Power Bar that currently work at Jambar. And you think
I
about,
love that.
wow, that's like 35 plus years. How is that even possible? But yeah, I'd say about 3 or 4 of our employees were at Power Bar that are now at Jambar.
You know, one of the questions that I had in the very beginning that I wanted to ask is the connection between, you know, music, being a drummer, and the
Hmm.
rhythm that you
Hmm.
capture back there, the backbeat, just kind of driving the whole music, whatever you're doing. Everybody's kind of playing with you in the back of their head. The
Right.
rhythm that happens in a band and the rhythm that happens when you're running. Is there a
Right.
rhythm that you pick up into, whether it's your cadence, your
Hmm.
breath, your heart rate, something? Can you
Hmm.
tie the two practices together,
Oh,
being in
definitely.
a band
Right.
and being out there on the trail?
Right. So we call it tempo.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the tempo of a drummer. So a lifelong. I've been running for geez, over 45 years, and so that tempo resides inside me. Right. That's your heart beating tempo that just becomes part of every cell of your body. Is that constant tempo. And when I took up playing the drums, I started from nothing. I didn't even know the names of the drums. And it kind of became natural to me, partly because of the four limb independence. I play mostly jazz, but I also play funk and rock and all the rest of it. But that four limb independence is crucial for being able to understand your instrument and being able to express yourself on your instrument. You have to be able to listen to each one of your limbs and master your instrument. And you also have to be able to listen to your bandmates and what they're doing, and whether that's the piano, whether that's the guitar, whether that's the horns, the bass, whatever it is, you're listening to what they're doing and you're understanding from a visceral and educated perspective because you've been playing music a long time. But it kind of connects down to you as a musician and that ingrained tempo and that limb independence that happens just for so many years of running.
Yeah, and I've got to think that it not only happens in a band or out on the trail, but even within your own business, with your own family relationships. If you pay attention, there is a rhythm that drives or a tempo that drives everything. You know,
Yeah.
and your actions then I imagine could influence the band. You know, the rest of the
Hmm.
bandmates could either increase or decrease, or they could hear a change is coming, or they're going to slow down or speed up. You kind of drive that from the back, and
Yeah.
then you can do that same thing with your business or your trail running or whatever you're doing. I'm just fascinated by the whole the rhythmic cycle of
Yeah.
events.
It's an ensemble, right? Life
Yeah.
is kind of an ensemble, which is a communication between members of a group. So particularly jazz, is talking specifically about music. Jazz is very it's improvisation, and so the two groups I'm in a jazz group in Berkeley, the jazz school, which is downtown Berkeley, and then I'm in a funk Latin band in Marin County.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, music is a huge part of my life for sure. Yeah.
Jennifer, this has been a really good discussion. And looking back, we had a recent episode where we looked back to the origin of Trail Runner Nation podcast, but it's really fun to look back even further to the 80s when power bars came out, and to see the evolution of all of this crowded space of nutrition bars for exercise. And it's also refreshing to see that there's still room for improvement, that you've developed Jambar to take it to the next level, and you decided that there's something more out there. There's something that you could still contribute to this
Right.
crowded energy area. And I got to say, I love them. I as Don mentioned, I go out on a morning run, and I used to go in a fasted state, and now I eat half a jam bar before I
There you go.
get to the trail.
There
And
you go.
I think it's making a difference. I think it's making a
Good.
difference.
And you're
So
enjoying it, so that's good.
we
Yeah.
really appreciate that. You can find out more by going to jambar.com. And maybe in the next few weeks, we may have some additional information about Jambar coming down. So pay attention to the next few episodes as well.
I've got one last question. That was a perfect wrap, Scott. But Ryan has the ability to throw this back. Can you tell me a little about Lance Armstrong joining Power Bar? Were you that connection, or did that happen after you sold?
No, that was us in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So Davis Finney, so that's 7-Eleven cycling team, right? So
Mm.
the story there is they were eating ham and cheese sandwiches on the Tour de France, and so they discovered Power Bar, and like that texture's sticky, right? So they unwrap the Power Bar, stick it on the top tube of their bike, and it would stay there, and they would take chunks off of the Power Bar with some water, and no, that was their secret weapon in the Tour de France.
Yeah,
And
Lance is
that would have
always
been,
was always looking for an advantage, and there was
yeah.
like 0 grams to that power bar holder. He just stuck it on the bar.
He
That's
just stuck it on the bar.
hilarious.
That would have been 80, 86, 87, 88, those years. Crazy.
Yeah. And so did you go to the 7-Eleven cycling team first, or did you find Lance first, or was Lance just some guy wearing a 7-Eleven jersey?
I think it was because we started in the sport of cycling in Berkeley, and I think it was
Mm-hmm.
through a biking shop that we made those connections. And remember that Brian was a pretty high level athlete, so I think high level athletes know other high level athletes, and just
Sure.
that connection in high level sports, they were able to, we were able to get them some bars, and like, these are awesome.
Jennifer, how important is it to have a high profile athlete as a endorsement for something like this? Is it critical? I noticed a lot of companies have their high level athletes that are waving their flags of the products
Yeah,
they use. How
I mean,
important is that?
I think it's very important, Scott. I mean, we pride ourselves in having the three pillars, which is authenticity, quality, and philanthropy. But we have a lot of high level athletes using jam bars and wanting that 40 plus years of
Yeah.
experience and authenticity that comes from creating a category. And like you said, improving on the category, right? Like there's something different about a jam bar that's very special. The company, yes, but the product as well. It's like the sea of energy bars. Why would an athlete want to eat a jam bar? And just really thinking about that and discovering how it can work for them. But just to have that credibility and listening to these high level athletes, I think is important for any company. Yeah.
Jennifer, it's been a great story, and it's fun to get to talk to the innovator, the very
Yeah.
first one to show up to the category and hear your story. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Scott. It's really good to meet you all and enjoy the conversation.